Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm Cassandra from CassandraTiddle.com, and today I have my lovely friend and a wonderful astrologer, Kate Petty, here with me. And what we're going to be talking about today is a wonderful article that she contributed to the WellBeing magazine, all about Antiscia. So Antiscia is an aspect sort of pattern or a technique that many people may have heard of, but not really sure what to do with. So Kate is a real expert in this particular area. It's her specialty, but let's throw it over to Kate and she can tell us more about herself. So Kate, how did you get into astrology?
Yeah, wow. Boy, like when I was quite young, actually, a couple of books around the home. So probably found it age 8 or 9.
Wow.
And look through some of those books and then go to the library and then through my teens, like it would come in and out, and in my early 20s started collecting books from the library, like piles.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until my right before Saturn return, that I got crazy serious and started paying to study with mentors and really take it seriously.
Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of key differences in sort of, our age group or lineage of astrologers is that it kind of like just was a part of our existence, and there was awareness around it, and then something triggers, and then you had to really find it. You had to find the books or find the teachers or really kind of seek it out. Nowadays, there's just so much available for people. So they have just, so much there. So it's very different, isn't it? So it's almost like we had to find this like secret information or learn from somebody who you had to go to their home in order to find it. So was this all when you, So was this, still based in Seattle when you were doing these discoveries?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And you're like, the way that you just talked about that is so correct. I would go to my first teacher's house and she would give me cassette tapes of the teaching. Like, I'm serious.
Cassettes.
And you would go through methodically, not like piecemeal with little bits on the internet. I mean, it's just so different to be,
if it was a lecture and you're like frantically taking notes down and you're like, can you say that thing about what does a square mean again? Oh, the good old days. Yes, exactly. So definitely had to work our astrological muscles back in those days. So Anticia, tell us about this wonderful technique called Antiscia.
Yes, I adore Antiscia. Okay, so it's very real. It's very earthy. It has everything to do with light and time, and you can like literally experience it by noting how much light is going on during the year. So I first of all love that about it, because it's based on the seasonal turning points. So it's just based on the cardinal axis and its symmetries around, say, let's start with the solstice points. It's symmetries on either side of shared light. And what they are like connecting points. When you have that exact symmetry, you will find, if you start looking into this, you'll find, like with a good friend, you'll find, oh, their Jupiter, it reflects my sun. No wonder we have, a great time together all the time. Anyway, you start seeing these points and how really connected they are, even though they're not usually, they're not going to be like a trine.
Yeah.
They're not your typical aspects.
No.
But yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first got introduced to the topic, and I remember my friend said, I think it was my moon exactly formed an Antiscia to her Mercury. And so whenever we got together, because you'd think, Libra and Pisces, nothing, but we'd and sometimes I've heard Antiscia described as a shadow type of aspect, which of course, is a part of the light in the light availability at the time. But sometimes when people hear shadow, they might be thinking it in the more Jungian perspective or modern psychological perspective. So just for our viewers, is there any kind of overlay in those type of shadow ideas, or is it totally different?
Yeah, no, that's a nice way to think about it, because they are reflections as symmetry, but the shadow because they're kind of secret connections, they're not, it's not a shared elemental piece. So there's kind of a secretness about it. And it, because of the elements that come together, it creates more integration, just like we would think about like doing shadow work, kind of delving into your shadow or dreams or unconscious. You're kind of trying to make things more whole, make a picture more whole.
Yeah, one of the ways I try and conceptualize it and talk about it with students is the idea of, those particular days of the year where you could, wake up, maybe sit outside with your morning coffee, and there's something about the quality of light or temperature, and you couldn't quite tell, is it spring or is it autumn? Or, you know what I mean? There's that sort of, it's the same light levels or the same sort of almost atmospheric feeling in the air. Because it is that sort of reflection of where the sun is at the same time, but in a different sort of season. Do you, like, how do you use this technique, Kate? Like, do you use it like in sort of when you're doing natal readings or transit work? Like, are there specific ways that you like to use this particular technique?
Yeah, I mean, if I can, I use it with everything, because you even see it come through in progressions, even symbolic timing. But you definitely see it with transits, synastry, chart to chart relationships is beautiful. But just within the natal, if a person has natal signatures, connections, it's usually very obvious. Like, like there's many artists who have, I talk about this on my website, but Mercury, Jupiter, who are vocalists and have these big voices, or another is like Venus, Saturn, like Kate Bush, Adele, people that their style of music and what they're singing about, often like heartbreak or love and bittersweet, is Venus, Saturn signature on the axis. Like you see it in people when they have it natally.
Yeah, it's beautiful because you're lighting up that something that's unseen in the birth chart in the shadow concept. It's really fascinating. Yeah, the Adele one is really a great example. So I loved what you shared on Instagram. I think it might have been maybe last week or something, where you said pretty much WTF, like, why it's 2021, why are astrologers not using this? So do you have an idea? Maybe it's something to do with the transmission of the tradition, or just, why do you think this technique hasn't really gained much traction?
Yeah, well, definitely. I think it has to do with the lack of simplicity in seeing it, because we're really, as astrologers, we see aspects, we see geometric shapes, we see squares and trines, we see things that are easy to identify. And these you have to reroute your brain to be thinking about the cardinal cross, 0 Aries, Libra, 0 Cancer, Capricorn. And you kind of have to plant that in the chart and think about openings. And I mean, there's lots of tricks to that. I have like worksheets on my website. But that's part of it. But it's important to note that pretty much all astrologers historically, going back 2000 years, even beyond Manilius wrote about them. It's a bit different in that text, but I mean, all of the astrologers mentioned Antiscia, and that they at least remediated aversions or inconjuncts or quincunx, whatever you want to call it. So that's a really significant deal. Whether it be Ptolemy or Firmicus Maternus, like they all use language about these connections being about beholding and seeing, and then also union and sympathy. And that's part of where I actually kind of learned about Antiscia initially, not traditionally, but through Uranian, which is midpoints in this wild development in early last century. But then coming in to study traditional astrology very deeply and Hellenistic astrology, seeing that it was present throughout all the texts. I mean, it's not like it's everywhere in the text, but it always comes up, and that it's not used very frequently. It was like, what is going on? Okay, we need to like try to like conceptualize this in a new way, or I don't know, make make, I don't know, like make it easier to
Yeah,
grasp
sometimes,
it because it's very,
exactly. Yeah. I think sometimes with these old texts, right, many of them are not written in the way that we speak and think. So you have to kind of not only think about what are they saying astrologically, but in terms of, like the language, excuse me, the language used. Sorry, it's so humid here. I feel like I'm swallowing moisture. Yeah, it's this idea of having to, it's brain work, like, let's face it. And so
yeah,
I
it is.
think that's the beauty of the way that you present the material. It does help to, okay, so I get the theory and the concepts of this work, but how do I apply it in a way that works for understanding my own chart or understanding that of clients? I mean, the way that I tend to use the technique, the most is with synastry. So I don't use composite, or I think you pronounce composite, charts at all anymore. I might take a glance, but I guess it's the difference between what is actually happening with light levels versus a conceptualized chart that never ever happened in the sky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it really does kind of speak to the connections that you'd have with somebody in a way that you might be thinking, oh, we don't have those traditional aspectual or elemental connections, but that there's connection nonetheless. And often Antiscia will reflect where that takes place.
Yeah, you most definitely see that. I just had a client last week who, I think they were celebrating 35 years marriage, and not only did they have significant other aspects, but their Venuses were in Antiscia, and there were Saturn pieces involved too. But I mean, again and again, you will see these love statements. I mean, it's not required,
Yeah.
another Venus type connection will do, but it's one that is absolutely, it can be like overseen, and you might miss that. It's very important. But like ironically, going back to the composite, if people do have Venuses reflect, say they're in Gemini, Cancer, or in contra Antiscia, like Cancer to Sag, which is not an aspect typically, the composite Venus will be at 0, 0 Libra or 0 Cancer, the solstice point. So that composite, which most people know, is a chart of midpoints, and Antiscia are midpoints to this world point, this axis. So like there's a lot of like overlap with that theoretically.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like when you first learn astrology and you kind of have to, obviously we've grown up with the heliocentric model, and then you have to kind of like recalibrate your brain to looking at the solar system geocentrically and wrapping your head around all the different things. And then Antiscia is almost another head wrap in again, you know what I mean? So it is like, it's one of those things. I think if this technique does, pique your curiosity, it is worth the mental load that you have to take on to grasp it. And then once you've kind of got it, you get it. It's like you can't unsee it once you've seen it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
and it is like algebra or something, like
exactly.
you either get it or you don't, and you need to find like the right teacher to help you unlock that, or the right material, diagram, whatever it takes. But once it's unlocked, you do see it.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more time consuming for sure to identify the connections. But that's what software is for.
I was just going to say, Soulfire does have a great Antiscia feature. Which can really help as well. So, and even just kind of, just pulling up your own chart with the Antiscia model and just sit with that for a while. How does that play out? What might be transiting your own Antiscia points, where you can be having an experience that doesn't necessarily reflect the moving sky right now. You're, in the more kind of way that we're used to looking at it with our own chart. So I don't know. I just think it's a wonderful astrological, dare I say, rabbit hole to go down, because it can really reveal so much that is kind of unseen. And some people might know I'm a real fan of aversion. So yeah, there's also the Antiscia to that as well. So
Yeah.
So many things. So Kate, in terms of like what you have to offer in respect to teaching, or you mentioned there's some worksheets on your website, can you tell the people about, what you can, share with them in terms of learning more about this?
Yeah, I have a couple recorded, like 3 up right now, recorded lectures that are very multimedia. So lots of visuals and music and ways for people to grok the material, like have it come in another way. I like to work that way because I think we're all different learners. And also Anticia really, for people that are very visually based, I use a lot of diagrams because I think that really helps with Anticia. But and then I mentor students. I love mentoring, and which includes a lot of times assisting people in like really making use of their software, because I am like a real freak for software. I can find my way around things like really quickly and love to like teach people the secrets, because there's a lot that I think people aren't utilizing in the software that's just right there, and you don't know until you're told about the trick.
Yeah, I remember when I was in Seattle and you had one of those, I don't know, what are they called? Like a laptop thing that kind of folds down, like the touch thing. Yeah. And just your fingers, like, how did you even do that? Never knew Solify could do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever need some Solify support, Kate is fantastic for that. I'm like, wow, like putting my Gemini planets to shame, that's for sure.
I'm gonna say I'm Virgo, right? I'm not a Virgo, but I've got my Virgo. So yeah.
I know, I'm such a software noob. I really just do the basics and that's about it. So your website, what's your website, Kate?
It's Ambient Astrology. Some people might say ambient. I say ambient.
In Australia, it would be ambient.
Yeah. Ambient is good. Ambient Astrology. Also, if you probably Google Antiscia,
yeah, you're all over
Kate, you will definitely come across my diagrams and different things. But yeah, that's where I can be found. I'm also on Instagram. I'm just kind of like new in my advanced stage on Instagram, but that is my intention, is to be adding more material there all the time.
Fantastic.
Because it's, I do list Anticia for the year on my website. So, at any given time, you can just come on there and like see if there are any connections without having to check it out yourself.
And so if you happen to be scrolling through the pages of Instagram or what have you and see some of these fabulous paintings that are in Kate's background right now, you found the right person, because you also do these wonderful paintings as well. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I've spent a lot of time on here during this time.
Yes. All the things. Well, firstly, I just want to thank you for this wonderful article that you have contributed to this magazine. It is an Australian publication, so it is readily available, like in Coles and Woolies and all the places, the newsagents. I'll also put some links if you can't access one. I can send you one. There's digital availability for it as well. And if you really want a hard copy and you're not located in Australia, let me know. Probably via my website's the best place, and I can arrange to have one sent out to you. So, Kate, I am so thrilled that you accepted my invitation to come and talk about this article, because it is such wonderful work, and I'm so happy to be able to share that with the people.
Yeah, thank you. I know there's much, it goes into a lot more depth in the article.
Yeah. And just check out Kate's website, have a feel for the material, as I said, it's worth the mental gymnastics to kind of, just, there's always something new to learn about astrology, and that's just what's so fantastic about it. But the thing is, these techniques are generally not new. We're just rediscovering them in new ways, which is so fantastic. Well, you are the Antiscia expert, and I'm so thrilled that you've been able to write this piece for us and share it as well.
My pleasure. I was really happy to do it.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Kate. It's great to chat with you.